Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
The afternoon sun streamed through the large bay window in the living room, casting long shadows across the polished hardwood floors that Lauren had paid to have refinished just last year. Another quiet expense added to the long list of things she had done for a house that wasn't even hers. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh coffee, her mother's signature scent of domestic perfection, the kind that always made everything seem warm and welcoming on the surface, even when there was something colder lingering underneath. The sound of the washing machine hummed in the background, and from the kitchen, her father's chair scraped against the floor as he got up for another cup of coffee, completely at ease in the home Lauren had bought for them without ever being asked. She had done it because that's what she was supposed to do, because she had always been the responsible one, because she had spent her entire life making sure her parents had everything they needed without them ever having to struggle, because she had believed, naively, foolishly, that taking care of them meant they would one day recognize her sacrifices, that they would one day say thank you, that they would one day look at her and see more than just a steady, reliable fixture in their lives. Her mother sat across from her on the couch, flipping through the stack of bills Lauren had just paid online, scanning each confirmation email on her tablet like she was checking off a grocery list, like none of it meant anything, like it was all just part of the routine. She didn't look up when she spoke, didn't hesitate before saying the words that would change everything in a single breath, didn't realize, couldn't have realized, what she was about to set in motion. "Oh, by the way, sweetheart," her mother said casually, adjusting her reading glasses as she scrolled through her messages, her voice light, indifferent, as if she were talking about the weather, as if this conversation had no weight at all. "We finally got everything settled with the lawyer. The estate, the will, all that. It's good to have it taken care of, just in case. And I just wanted to let you know that everything will be going to Amanda when we're gone." Lauren didn't move. She didn't react. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, heartbeat steady, expression perfectly composed, the years of conditioning settling over her like armor, like muscle memory. Like every other time she had heard something that should have hurt and simply forced herself not to feel it. Her mother kept talking, still not looking up, still not realizing that she had just cut her daughter open with a single sentence. "We just figured she needs it more," her mother continued, waving a hand dismissively, as if Amanda's needs had always outweighed Lauren's, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world, as if it wasn't even worth discussing. "You've always been so responsible, honey. You have a good job, no kids, no real struggles. But Amanda, well, you know how she is. She's had such a hard time. She could really use the help." Lauren smiled. She smiled like she had when she was 7 years old and watched Amanda get a brand new bicycle while she was handed a second-hand book about responsibility. She smiled like she had when she was 16 and listened to their mother justify why Amanda needed a car more than she did, why it was different, why Lauren would understand. She smiled like she had when she was 24, working double shifts to cover her student loans while her parents covered Amanda's rent, excusing it with the same words they had used 100 times before. "You understand, right?" She had understood, over and over again. She had understood for 30 years. And in that moment, as she sat there in the house she had paid for, listening to her mother talk about Amanda's needs as if they were more real, more urgent, more deserving than her own, something inside her finally snapped into place. Lauren nodded, her smile never faltering, her voice smooth, easy, the way it always was when she swallowed the sting of another disappointment. "Of course, Mom," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, tilting her head slightly as if nothing about this conversation had shaken her at all. "That makes perfect sense." Her mother sighed in relief, pleased with Lauren's understanding, pleased that once again, she had done what was expected of her without question, pleased that she hadn't argued or protested or made things uncomfortable. And just like that, the conversation moved on. Her parents continued chatting about their weekend plans, about Amanda's latest crisis, about the weather, about dinner, about anything and everything that had nothing to do with what had just happened, because to them, it wasn't a betrayal. To them, it was just the natural order of things. Lauren finished her coffee, listened, nodded in the right places, let them think that nothing had changed. But something had changed. Because in that moment, Lauren made a decision, one so simple and so final that she was almost surprised by how easy it felt, how quickly it settled into her bones. She wasn't going to fight them. She wasn't going to argue or cry or try to convince them that she was worthy of more than what they were willing to give. She was just going to stop. She was going to stop paying their bills. She was going to stop financing their lives. She was going to stop making their comfort her responsibility. She was going to sit back and wait for the moment they realized what she had always known, that they had chosen the wrong daughter to depend on. And when that day came, she wasn't going to answer the phone. Lauren sat in her quiet apartment that evening, staring at the soft glow of the city lights outside her window, the hum of distant traffic filling the silence of the room, and for the first time in years, she let herself feel everything she had spent decades pushing aside. The weight of a lifetime of being the responsible one settled onto her chest like a stone, pressing into her ribs, making it harder to breathe, but instead of drowning in it like she once might have, she simply let it sit there. Let it remind her of all the things she had never said out loud. She had always been the backup plan, the safety net, the one who could be counted on, not because they loved her more, but because she required less, because she never needed to be rescued. Because she had never once let herself fall apart the way Amanda had been allowed to over and over again. She could trace it back to childhood, to the small but constant moments that had shaped the way things would always be, to the times when she had been expected to be the understanding one while Amanda had been showered with patience and excuses, to the nights when her mother had tucked her sister into bed with whispered reassurances that everything would be okay while Lauren had been expected to figure it out on her own. She remembered being 10 years old, standing in the toy aisle at the department store, watching as Amanda clutched a brand new doll to her chest, her little hands wrapped tightly around the box while their mother cooed about how much she had wanted it. Lauren had pointed to a book she had been eyeing for weeks, a small, simple request, something practical, something reasonable, but her mother had only smiled apologetically and said, "Maybe next time, sweetheart." Amanda's had a tough week. She remembered being 16, saving up every dollar from her part-time job to buy her own car, working late nights at the diner, counting tips, calculating how long it would take before she could afford something reliable. And she remembered the day Amanda turned 16 and woke up to a brand new sedan in the driveway, a shiny red bow tied around the hood, their parents beaming as if they had done something wonderful. As if it was a given that Amanda would have the best without ever lifting a finger. "You understand, right?" her mother had said, squeezing her hand as if that was supposed to make it better. Lauren had nodded, because that was what she did. She understood. She always understood. She remembered being 21, working through college, juggling classes and shifts at the coffee shop, stretching every paycheck to cover tuition and rent, while Amanda breezed through school with everything paid for. A safety net beneath her so wide and deep that she never even had to consider what it felt like to fall. When Amanda dropped out in her second year, claiming she just wasn't passionate about anything, their mother had smoothed her hair and said, "It's okay, sweetheart. You'll figure it out. Lauren will help if you need anything." And Lauren had helped. Because that was what she did. She helped. She remembered every emergency, every bad decision, every financial crisis Amanda had stumbled into, and every single time, it had been Lauren who had come to the rescue, Lauren who had pulled out her wallet, Lauren who had fixed the messes that never should have been hers to fix. When Amanda racked up thousands in credit card debt, it was Lauren who had quietly paid it off to keep their parents from panicking. When Amanda lost her apartment because she had spent her rent money on a vacation, it was Lauren who had let her crash on her couch for months, paying for groceries, covering the bills, making sure she had a place to land. And her parents had never once questioned it. Never once asked if it was fair. Never once considered that maybe Lauren had struggles too, that maybe she wasn't invincible, that maybe, just maybe, she deserved as much grace as they had given Amanda her entire life. "You're so strong, honey," her mother had said time and time again, as if that was supposed to be enough, as if those words were supposed to fill the space where love and fairness should have been. But it wasn't enough. And now, sitting in the quiet of her apartment, the realization settled in her chest like a slow-burning fire, something that had always been there but had never fully caught flame until now. She was never their daughter. Not in the way Amanda was. She had been their safety net, their backup plan, their steady, reliable, unshakable solution to problems that weren't hers to solve, and now, for the first time in her life, she was finally ready to step away from the role they had forced her into. Lauren reached for her laptop, pulled up the auto payment settings for her parents' mortgage, and with a few quick clicks, she canceled the next payment. Then she opened her banking app and did the same for their utilities, their phone bill, the credit card she had been quietly paying off for years without ever being asked. She didn't hesitate. She didn't second-guess herself. She just stopped. And now, she was going to wait. Wait for the calls, the confusion, the slow realization that their safety net was gone. Wait for the moment they understood what she had known for years, that they had built their lives around the wrong daughter, that they had placed their faith in someone who had never once learned how to stand on her own, that they had spent a lifetime choosing Amanda while expecting Lauren to clean up the consequences. And when that moment came, she wasn't going to answer the phone. Have you ever given everything to someone, your time, your money, your energy, your peace of mind, only to wake up one day and realize they never saw you as family, never truly saw you at all, not as a human being with your own needs and limits, but just as a solution, a name on a check, a lifeline they never expected to run out? Maybe it was a parent, a sibling, someone who always counted on you but never counted you in. If you've been there, if you've ever felt invisible in the very home you helped hold together, drop a comment. Because I see you. I've lived it. And let me tell you, the silence that follows when you stop giving, it says more than any apology ever could. The first week after Lauren canceled the auto payments felt almost too quiet, like a calm before a storm that hadn't yet realized it was coming. There were no phone calls, no frantic texts, no questions about missed bills or unpaid balances. Part of her wondered if they even noticed, or if maybe, just maybe, Amanda had stepped in without her knowing, picking up the slack the way Lauren always had. But deep down, she knew better. Amanda didn't do discomfort. She didn't handle problems. She was the kind of person who believed that if she ignored a fire long enough, someone else would put it out. And that someone had always been Lauren. So the silence? It wasn't peace. It was denial. By the second week, her phone rang once, a number she didn't recognize, probably a service provider, maybe the electric company, but she let it go to voicemail. There was no message. Just a deadline and more silence. She checked her email once, curious, and saw an overdue notice for the water bill. She closed the app without reading the full message. That part of her life was closed now, like a room she had finally walked out of and locked behind her. Then, by the third week, the silence turned into tension. A missed call from Amanda's number showed up late one evening, followed by a text that simply read, "Are you okay? I think something's up with Mom and Dad's place." Lauren stared at it for a full minute before locking her phone again. No reply. No explanation. Not anymore. Let Amanda do what Lauren had done for years, wonder, worry, investigate, pay. Let her feel what it was like to be the one everyone looked to when something went wrong. It wasn't until day 29 that the dam broke. Lauren was sitting in her car after work, watching the last of the daylight disappear behind the skyline, when her phone rang again, Amanda's number, this time with the urgency of someone who was no longer playing nice. She answered with a calm, practiced voice, already knowing where the conversation was going. "Mom and Dad's power is off," Amanda snapped, skipping any greeting. "They've been sitting in the dark for 2 days, and the fridge smells like death. Mom's crying. Dad's pissed. What the hell is going on?" Lauren took a slow breath, gripping the steering wheel lightly, her gaze fixed on nothing in particular. Amanda kept going. Did something happen? Did you forget to pay? They said they tried calling you. You didn't answer. I know, Lauren said simply. There was a pause on the other end, like Amanda hadn't expected the honesty, like she thought Lauren would play dumb or at least offer an excuse. So, what's wrong with you? Amanda asked, her voice sharper now. You've always taken care of this stuff. They depend on you. Why are you being so weird? Lauren let the silence hang for a second longer than necessary before replying. Ask them. And with that, she hung up. Her hands trembled a little, not from nerves, but from the weight of what it meant to finally say no. For years, she had carried their messes like they were her duty, like their lives would collapse if she stopped holding them up. But now, in this strange quiet where her phone wasn't buzzing and her inbox wasn't pinging and no one was pretending she didn't exist until they needed something, she finally felt what it meant to be free. Amanda would call again. She knew that. Maybe their mother would too, or maybe their father would finally find his voice after a lifetime of being silent in the background. But Lauren wasn't going to move this time. She wasn't going to rush to save the people who had never once made her feel seen, who had never once asked if she needed saving too. She had given them everything. Years of financial help, emotional support, stability they never earned and never appreciated. She had paid for their roof, their lights, their comfort, and all it had earned her was a seat behind Amanda, the daughter who always fell short and was still somehow held the highest. Now, the lights were off. The fridge was warm, and the illusion was gone. Lauren wasn't just done paying their bills. She was done paying the price for their choices. And for the first time, the silence wasn't hers to carry. The call came late in the evening, long after the sky had gone dark, long after Lauren had settled into the quiet peace of her own space, long after she had stopped waiting for them to reach out, even though she knew, deep down, that this moment had always been inevitable. Her phone vibrated against the wooden nightstand, the screen lighting up in the dimly lit room, her mother's name flashing across the display like a warning, like an omen, like something that should have meant love but had only ever meant obligation. She didn't answer right away. She just sat there, staring at the screen, watching the call ring out, letting the seconds stretch, letting herself feel the weight of this moment before making a decision. For the first time in her life, she was the one with the power. The call went to voicemail, and seconds later, the notification popped up, a new message waiting to be played, a voice from her past reaching out, a familiar presence trying to pull her back into the role she had abandoned. She exhaled slowly, letting her fingers hover over the screen before pressing play, bracing herself for the voice she had known since birth, the voice that had praised her when it was convenient and dismissed her when it wasn't, the voice that had always found a way to make her feel like a duty instead of a daughter. Lauren, her mother's voice came through, tight and breathless, filled with the kind of forced emotion that made it clear she was building up to something. Sweetheart, I don't understand what's going on. We've been trying to reach you for days. The power is off. The water bill hasn't been paid. Your father and we've been sitting here, freezing, trying to figure out what's wrong. Lauren closed her eyes, pressing the phone against her palm, letting the words sink in, letting herself absorb the sheer audacity of it all. Not why did this happen? Not did something go wrong? Not even are you okay? Just fix it. Do what you always do. Solve this problem. Make this easy for us. Her mother kept talking, her voice shifting from confusion to something sharper, something tinged with disappointment, something that dripped with the same quiet manipulation Lauren had heard her entire life. We never thought you'd be so cruel, her mother said, the words slow, deliberate, designed to hit where they used to hurt, meant to remind Lauren of the role she had played for so long. After everything we've done for you, after everything we've given you, we never imagined you'd turn your back on your own family like this. Lauren's jaw clenched, her fingers curling around the edge of the blanket draped over her lap, her body stiffening as the familiar sting of those words pressed against her ribs. But this time, it didn't break her. This time, She wasn't the one scrambling to prove she was good enough. This time, she wasn't the one begging to be seen. This time, she was just listening. And then she pressed delete. No reply. No response. Just silence. The next day, the phone rang again, her mother's name lighting up the screen once more, as if last night had never happened, as if nothing had changed, as if the sheer force of her expectations would be enough to pull Lauren back in. Voicemail. Another message. This one shorter, tighter, laced with the kind of passive-aggressive frustration that had always been the undercurrent of their relationship. I don't know what's gotten into you, her mother snapped, her voice less delicate now, her patience beginning to fray. You need to call us back. This isn't funny, Lauren. We need you. Lauren let the phone drop onto the couch beside her, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of those words press against her chest, feeling the echoes of a past she had been so close to escaping trying to pull her back under. We need you. Not we love you. Not we're sorry. Not we never should have treated you like a second-class daughter while expecting you to be our first-class caretaker. Just we need you. Another day passed. Another voicemail. We don't know what we're supposed to do. Lauren sat in her car that night, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the missed calls piling up on her screen, feeling the weight of every single moment in her life that had led to this, feeling the quiet, creeping realization that there was no good answer to the question that had been haunting her since the moment she heard those words. We're leaving everything to Amanda. Because it had never been about the money. It had never been about the inheritance. It had never been about the legal documents or the will or the division of assets. It had been about the truth they had unknowingly revealed, the undeniable confirmation of what she had always feared but never fully accepted. She had never been their daughter. Not in the way Amanda was. She had been their safety net, their problem solver, their quiet, dependable, unquestioning provider. And now, when she had finally chosen to walk away, when she had finally decided to let them experience life without the financial security she had spent years maintaining, they weren't calling because they missed her. They were calling because they missed what she did for them. And that was a kind of grief she hadn't been prepared for. The phone rang again, the screen lighting up, her mother's name glowing like a final test, like a last chance to fall back into the cycle, like an open door waiting for her to step through. Lauren exhaled slowly, watching the seconds tick down, letting the ringing fill the space around her, letting the moment stretch, letting herself decide, really decide, who she was going to be. And then, just before the call went to voicemail, she did the only thing she could do. She let it ring. She let it go. She let them sit in the silence they had never bothered to notice before. And this time, for the first time, she didn't feel guilty. The fifth missed call came on a Sunday afternoon, the same time Lauren used to call just to check in, ask about grocery lists, or whether the furnace filter had been changed, those tiny mundane things that no one had ever asked her to handle. But she'd taken on anyway because that was who she was until she wasn't. This time, she let it ring straight through, didn't even glance at the screen, just kept stirring the soup on her new stove in her new kitchen in her new home, a home that no one helped her buy, no one co-signed for, no one sent a single congratulatory text about. It was hers. Entirely hers. And somehow, the silence echoing through the house felt more comforting than any phone call ever could. 3 weeks had passed since the first voicemail. In that time, her parents' messages had turned from confused and pleading to sharp and angry, then finally to something Lauren never expected, quiet desperation. Still, not once had they said the word she had been waiting to hear her whole life. Sorry. Not once had they acknowledged what they'd taken from her emotionally, over years of being treated as the fallback, the second-tier daughter, the one who would be fine without love because she was strong enough to live on scraps. It wasn't until Uncle Ray called that she even thought about picking up the phone. He wasn't someone who called often. He wasn't someone who inserted himself into family drama. He just showed up on holidays with a six-pack and a tired joke, always watching from the sidelines, always knowing more than he let on. And when his name popped up on her screen, something in her chest pulled tight, but she answered anyway. "Hey, kid," he said, voice low and slow like always, the kind of voice that never rushed into a point but made you wait for it. "You doin' okay?" Lauren swallowed hard, caught off guard by the tenderness in the question. "Yeah, actually," she said, keeping her tone light. "Better than I've been in years." He chuckled softly, then paused long enough that she knew something was coming. "I figured. I'm not calling to guilt you. I'm calling because, well, they're finally starting to see it." Took Em long enough. She didn't speak, just let him continue. "They thought Amanda would step up," he said plainly. "They thought if push came to shove, she'd figure it out. But, well, she's not figuring anything out. She's not helping. She won't even pick up the phone unless it's about her own rent being late." Lauren felt something cold and familiar sink in her stomach, the kind of confirmation she'd always known but never heard said aloud. Uncle Ray went quiet again, then added, "I told your mom last night, plain and simple, you spent years choosing Amanda. Let's see if she saves you now." And just like that, the weight shifted again. They had always chosen Amanda, chosen her comfort, chosen her excuses, chosen to believe that Lauren didn't need anything. And now that they needed help in return, they were discovering that the daughter they'd always coddled was the same one who would walk away when things got hard. Lauren didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just exhaled, long and slow, like someone finally releasing a breath they'd been holding for decades. She thanked Uncle Ray, said goodbye, and hung up. Over the next few days, she watched the calls slow down. One every couple of days instead of multiple in a single hour. The messages became shorter, more uncertain. Her mother's voice, once full of biting disappointment, now sounded small. Her father, who rarely ever spoke on the phone, left a voicemail with nothing but a sigh and the words, "We need to talk." But she never returned the calls. She didn't block them. That would have been too easy, too clean. Instead, she left the door cracked just enough to make a point, not that she was gone, but that she no longer lived in their shadow, no longer stood waiting to be noticed, no longer begged for a place at the table they always set for Amanda first. She spent the following month decorating her new home. No one came to help her unpack. No one offered to bring food or paint a wall or hang a single frame. And yet, it was the most peace she'd ever felt. She hosted a small dinner for close friends, laughed too loudly, poured good wine, and never once thought about whether she should call her parents to tell them how her life was going. Because they'd never asked. Not really. So when the holidays came and went without an invitation, without a text, without a card, she didn't feel sad. She felt free. Her parents had made their choice. And Lauren had finally made hers. She didn't get revenge in the traditional sense. There were no angry confrontations, no slammed doors, no shouted accusations. Just silence. Just distance. Just the unmistakable power of walking away without explaining yourself to people who never cared to understand you in the first place. And in the quiet of that distance, something began to bloom inside her, a kind of strength that didn't need to be seen to be real, a kind of peace that wasn't dependent on anyone's approval, a kind of love that came from choosing herself for once. Still, sometimes, in the silence of a Sunday morning, she would wonder, had she become like them? Had she shut the door a little too hard? Could love have healed what decades of dismissal had broken? She didn't know. But she did know this. They had chosen Amanda. And now they could live with that choice.